Hello, everybody, welcome back to my channel. The name of my channel is Room for Rewinds, and today we'll be doing an ending explain on the movie Crimes of the Future. I really love the lesson that this movie gives me, and I really like the acting and everything. And I would give it a 10 out of 10. I think this is the greatest movie of this year. I haven't seen the movies that are about to come, but I swear to God, I think this was the greatest, creation. So, without talking any further, let's dive right into it. The movie starts, with a boy playing alone in the ocean, and his name is Brecken. His mother calls him out and tells him not to eat anything that he finds in the ocean, and she's very adamant about that. And as he is brushing his teeth, and she finds this plastic basket that she just keeps chewing on, and then after seeing that, the mother actually kills him and calls his father to come pick up the corpse. Yep. And we dive off to the next scene. We see this bed. The way it is designed, it's almost to make you feel like you're floating with all this technology things all apart. And we see a woman named Caprice, and she wakes up a man named Saul Tenser, and Saul is like, the bed is not working properly. As she is examining Saul Tenser, she determines there's a new organ that she doesn't know that's growing inside him, and we can see Saul Tenser struggling to eat in the feeding chair. But they head over to the organ registry to meet a guy named Whippet and Timlin. And the guy expresses that he's concerned about the world and the threshold of pain not being there, and infection and all those desktop surgeries. And everybody in the room is quite concerned about this thing, that people are not feeling pain anymore or having infection. They're doing an examination themselves, and Caprice records, but then they just reprimand her from that. Saul is in his bed, and the two lady technicians examine the bed and actually confirm that he grows organs. So it's the show. Saul Tenser is the star, and he has this organ that he grew removed in front of everybody with cameras, and we can see the candy bar eating man. And with the show going so well, everybody's there, and it's almost like when they're doing these surgeries, it's almost like he's feeling pleasure, like ecstasy. It's just so weird. Caprice is a star, and they open him up and remove the organ and put it in a jar, and you can see the organ is tattooed because that's what they do. And Timlin approaches Saul Tenser and says, "Is surgery the new sex?" Yeah. And this man just takes the candy bar from this other man and just dies after eating it. So they're visited by an investigating officer from the bureau, who just asked them, "What are you doing with Saul Tenser? What is your deal with him?" And they just say, "You know what, we are from the organ registry, so we just want to register all his organs." And they believe in what she's doing, and they actually talk to him, telling him that Saul Tenser is an artist, and they show him the portfolio of all the organs that were removed from Saul Tenser. And we can see this man who stitched his eyes and has ears all over in this, show, this body show. And he's dancing, and this woman is like, "I don't like him. The ears don't even work. The ears don't even work properly. They don't all hear." And then she just pitches an idea that Saul should enter the inner beauty contest, and tells her who the doctor is, and gives Saul Tenser the number. And as Saul Tenser is walking home, he gets approached by this man named Lang, and he says, "I've got an idea for a show. You can examine my dead son's body." And he asks, like, "Who killed the boy?" And it's like, "No, the boy's mother killed him, but I guarantee you, if you examine that body, there are going to be surprises, I bet you." And Saul is just really, really not sure about this, and starts asking other questions about the boy. But the man is very apprehensive and is very secretive about it. But then Saul says, "You know what, I'm gonna think about it." And we can see there this frog looking like device that they use to control the lasers in their shows, and like their little knives. And basically here what happens is that they now take pain as pleasure. Like they cut up each other, they cut in their skin and bones, and for them it's like pleasure. It's like the new sex, like Timlin said. And dive off to the next scene. We can see Saul Tenser here meeting with the investigative officer from the bureau. So actually Saul Tenser is an informant for him. Ooh, double life. Anyway, he asked Saul Tenser, are you deep into that body art stuff? He's like, no, this is a rebellion. Like, I don't like what's happening to my body. So every time I grow these organs, I remove them publicly as a statement to say that I do not like what's happening. And, Saul asked him about this woman that's in jail for killing her own son. And the son's name was Bracken. And yes, he agrees and says, you know what, I'll give you information about the boy. And he in turn gives him information about the inner beauty contest. Here we can see Caprice. Visiting the two lady technicians, and, they ask him about Saul. And it's like, if a body needs organization, otherwise the organs are not organs, they're just tumors. And we can see Saul Tenser, joining the inner beauty contest, asking, what's going to happen. And they explain all this to him. And he visits the mother of the boy that died, and his name obviously is Bracken. And he explains that he killed the boy because the boy ate plastic. And when he did, he had this gooey, white substance that came out of his mouth that helped him digest the plastic. And she says she's glad she did it. We move on to the next scene. Candy Barman's factory, and he's meeting with his fellow people, and he's telling them this is going ahead with the Bracken autopsy, just because he spoke with Saul about it. And everything is all systems go. And we go to another show, a show where a woman is actually cutting up her face in front of so many people, and she looks peaceful. And it's like, now, like I said, like, pain is the new pleasure. Like, this is the new sex. People are now seeking pain just for them to feel something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they feel tingles, and hence it just gives them ecstasy because their pain threshold is down. And he talks to Caprice, and Caprice says, yeah, I like what you're doing. And then she does something on her face because she was inspired by that woman. And Saul is like, oh, okay. I guess he has to be with it. He meets this guy, Whippet, who tells him that he was one of the founders of the inner beauty contest, but tells him, you don't deserve to be there. You're rebelling against your changes. And Saul's like, okay, yeah, I won't do it. But then begs him to do it anyway. And then he tells Timlin, who just says, should I report him? But then, Timlin is only interested in smooching this old man. Timlin. And we dive off to the next scene. Lang is showing Caprice and Saul Brecken's dead body, and Caprice is just much upset, but they agree to do the show. He meets up with this investigating officer from the bureau, and the man actually says, what, you should be very close to Lang because we know what he's doing. And they actually know that he's a plastic eater, and this derives from human nature, and they're just freaks. And the government wants to control people, so if people doing such things, it won't be easy to control. And she just explains that get close to that man. Yeah, we dive off to the next scene, and you can see the inner beauty doctor getting killed by the two lady technicians. I'll only refer to them as the lady technicians, really. And we can see Caprice saying he agrees to do the show. They meet up with Lang. Actually explains to them that they had themselves surgically altered. Him and his people surgically altered their bodies to be able to digest plastic. But the thing is that now when he conceived the child was naturally able to conceive plastic. So, Saul is like, oh, you mean if you cut off a finger, your pinky finger, you'll be able to give birth to, a child without a pinky? And, he says precisely. And he says, Bracken was our miracle child. Yeah, dude, you should have let the mother in on it, because the mother wasn't having it. Kill the baby. And we move on to the next scene. It's the show. And they're doing an autopsy on Bracken, and we can see that. But you see, what happened now is that they found ordinary organs that had tattoos on them, and there was nothing special. Everything was just normal, which upsets Lang, and he starts crying, and he's blaming his ex-wife. And the two lady technicians come up to him, and then they kill him. And then we meet with the investigative officer, and the investigative officer actually confirms Saul Tenser's, suspicions that yes, they got to Brecken's body first, and Timlin actually opened up the boy and replaced his plastic digesting organs with those tattooed ones. And they couldn't let this out, because if this went out, then it means they wouldn't be able to keep a lid on it. And this upsets Saul Tenser, and he's like, oh, but then Lang was a leader. Why did you have him killed? And he denies it. And then he says, oh, I think you're becoming a believer. And Saul Tenser says, maybe. Saul Tenser is struggling to eat. He is really in pain, and he can't digest. He hasn't been able to digest food without the chair. Even with this chair, it's hard. And then, he calls on to Caprice and asks her to bring the plastic candy bar, just so he can try and eat it. He gives it to her, and immediately the chair responds to the bar because it stops moving, and he's actually able to chew and swallow it without any movements from the chair. And it makes you wonder, like, was Saul Tenser turning into Brecken? Maybe Brecken was just the evolution just being fast tracked. The evolution is being fast tracked by Lang's people, but Saul is creating new organs so that he's able to digest plastic. I think that's the main big theme in this movie. And he fought this these changes, but now he needs to embrace it. You can see these tears in his eyes because he cannot believe that he just digested plastic. I think the takeaway in this movie is just like how a small change, like what a small change can do to humanity. And I think, in regards to Soul Tenser, I think now he's going to start embracing the changes that are happening, and instead of fight against it. And you know what, I really think it's a really good idea. I think this movie is a really great idea, and I feel like, yes, of course we need to eat the plastic that we've been force feeding on the fishes. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so you can like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video. I'll be covering a movie with a similar theme called Awake. It's about a small family, and they're experiencing